ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule says he's not aware of any warrant of arrest. That's after the Hawks confirmed the warrant is in connection with the 255 million rand asbestos audit contract in the Free State.
They always know before all of us. It means they are well informed. They work with the agencies, and so let's leave it there. For me, it's fine. I don't have to say anything. So it's not a matter for me.
Your lawyers, you wrote to the NPA as well as the Hawks, your legal representation, saying that there must be some communication if there is an imminent arrest against you. Has there been any communication from those institutions? I
will talk to my lawyers this afternoon.
Is this the first hearing of this investigation?
It has been coming all the time, so I'm not worried at all. The struggle continues.
But over the past couple of days, no one came to you to say, hand yourself over, or this is what is coming for you?
No. No one. So let's see it. If it happens, it will happen. So I'm not worried at all because I know I haven't done anything wrong as a law-abiding citizen of South Africa.
So, ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule maintains he's innocent and has done nothing wrong. The Hawks have confirmed a warrant of arrest has been issued for Magashule, but he says he knows nothing about it. The ANC Secretary-General is expected to appear in court on Friday. Our political editor, Vuyo Mvoko, and reporter Michael Apple are following this story, so let's get the latest on this with them. Vuyo, I'm going to start with you. How telling is that reaction from the SG?
It was actually quite interesting because when the news broke, we had already spoken to him a couple of times as he was busy electioneering in Soweto. But the minute they became aware that we now wanted to talk to him about this particular story, then his whole team then had a quick caucus meeting where the dominant view initially was that he shouldn't even talk about it but allow other people who were part of his team to address it, because it was argued it was going to take away from the election campaigning that they were busy with, and because it had just landed, he may just say things that he would otherwise not have said had he come down and said nothing. So they were worried that he may just incriminate himself. But of course, as he said, that the response you saw, we just played now, was his response from, insisting that he was an innocent, law-abiding citizen, to attributing to a conspiracy, and of course saying he his lawyers hadn't spoken to him at all about him handing himself over over the next couple of days. But here's something that was interesting for me, because I think it speaks to how Ace Magashule is going to handle this matter going forward. Like former President Jacob Zuma, they have a way of using their organization, the ANC, or those people who believe in them, to obfuscate, to make sure that as far as possible they get to be protected. In fact, one of the cars that was part of his entourage had two little pamphlets on the back window that said, stop harassing, or something to that effect, our Secretary-General, and stop using state law enforcement agencies to fight political battles. Now, that is what you're going to hear going forward. You're also going to see a lot of people who are defenders or protectors of Ace Magashule and his legacy, as in fact people like Dakota Lekwete did at that very meeting where he had to speak about this, he had to answer about this issue. In fact, I wanted to take a listen to something he said after he was battling to initially answer questions about whether his lawyers had spoken to him, what he intends doing next. But the minute he was in front of the ANC faithful, he was very comfortable, and he said the things he knew that those who supported him wanted to hear. Listen to how eloquent he was and the issues that he was raising about the enemy within that he said had infiltrated the ANC.
We must just try by all means to unite the African National Congress. It will be united, comrades. It's a matter of time. You must never be disillusioned. You must never be defocused. You must never be demoralized. The enemy is intending to demoralize us. And we must refuse to be demoralized. We must refuse for lies to fly.
Coming to you next, Michael, tell us a little bit more about what this arrest warrant is in connection with.
Well, factually, Anli, this is from 2013-2014, the asbestos audit, as we understand. That audit, which would cost the taxpayer about 225 million rand, initially 255 million, and it would go to Diamond Head Consulting and Blackhead. And this is where Edwin Sodi and Igor Mpambani come in, and they received at least over 200 million rand. They would pay a subcontractor 50 million rand roughly, and then a third contractor who would ultimately do the work would get about 21 million rand. So that tender inflated tenfold, and if you look at media reports on what money was actually spent on the audit itself, only about 3%, and that was according to the Daily Maverick. So there is a tender here that is grossly inflated. It's an incredible waste of taxpayers' money. If you listen to some who have testified before the state capture inquiry, they say that this audit was entirely unnecessary, so that this entire project was thought up simply to be able to loot money from the taxpayers and from the fiscus. So the National Prosecuting Authority has issued this warrant. They would only do so if there is a reasonable prospect of successful prosecution. So as some have argued in the past, Ace Magashule, who was at the helm of that province for at least a decade, and certainly when this project was going down, was he complicit in it, or was it being done at his behest? The courts will decide.
Vuyo, politically speaking, what's likely to be his game plan?
Well, he is going to, for example, I mean, if depending on what comes out of this in the next couple of days, there will no doubt be voices that say he needs to step aside. I bet you he's going to try and resist that. And what will happen next, you're going to hear voices that say he is being persecuted, and the enemy within is using state law enforcement agencies to try and destroy him. There's going to be a lot of confusion, and with the ANC's history of not taking decisive action on these things, you just don't need to go very far back. Look at what is happening in KwaZulu-Natal, the case that involved the former mayor of eThekwini. You look at what is happening here, what has happened here in Gauteng around the PPEs. The toing and froing has actually demonstrated to everyone that there is still a lack of political will in dealing decisively with these things. And Ace Magashule is one of a handful, I would say, of people who know very, very well, and that group includes former President Jacob Zuma, who know how well to use the chaos that normally reigns when situations like these prevail, and they usually are winners. But what is going to tilt things in one direction or the other is a strong case that presumably state law enforcement agencies would have, because the time for obfuscating things, the time for dilly-dallying and using the organization to stay out of jail or to not pay back monies and so on looks to have gone. It's no longer there. there. But all of it depends, of course, on how strong a case the state law enforcement agencies have against him.
Thanks for that, Vuyo. Michael, you've recently spoken to one of Magashule's critics. Take us back. Who is this critic and what did he have to say?
Mxolisi Dukwana, the former Socioeconomic Development MEC in the Free State, at least during Ace Magashule's time, he was axed eventually after he was taken to the Gupta mansion, he says, with Ace Magashule, met with the Gupta brothers. He was asked to sign some property deal. He refused to do so. And then they offered him 2 million rand a month for 10 years if he did so. He turned that down, and he says that was when he was axed after that meeting at the Saxonwold compound. He, Mr. Dukwana, that is, believes that Ace Magashule ran the Free State as the title of Peter Louis Marburg's book denotes, as a gangster state, with him as the Don at the top. If you disagreed with him, you were out. That is how he acted. A lot of fear, a lot of intimidation, under which that province was run for at least a decade, from 2009 until he ascended to Luthuli House. And he said when he spoke before the state capture inquiry that he believed Ace Magashule should be arrested, should be behind bars, and should certainly not be somewhere as cozy as Luthuli House.
Thanks very much for that, Michael Apple, and political editor Vuyo Mvoko.